Hi readers, welcome back to my channel, Lila Wanders and Reads. Lee here, and I said I probably would not do a video this week, but I am trying to prepare for a presentation that I'm going to have to create for the course that it starts on Monday, and I thought that continuing to do videos, making time to do them, will be the best way to prepare for that. So, this is my week in a book haul because all of the reading that I did this week, that past week, is for my class that, again, starts on Monday. So in this class, which is called Holocaust, Collaboration, and Resistance, we have to come up with an idea for a conference paper and present that to our instructor in the last week of the course. And my idea is really about Ukraine, collaboration and resistance in Ukraine, and marrying that somehow to the present. And so with that in mind, all of these books that I purchased this week, and these are not all of the books that I purchased this week, but all of those serve to get to that end goal of my idea for my paper. So the first one is Masters of Death, the SS Einsatzgruppen and the Invention of the Holocaust by Richard Rhodes. In Masters of Death, Rhodes gives full weight for the first time to the Einsatzgruppen's role in the Holocaust. These special task forces, organized by Heinrich Himmler to follow the German army as it advanced into eastern Poland and Russia, were the agents of the first phase of the final solution. They murdered more than 1.5 million men, women, and children between 1941 and 1943, often shooting them into killing pits as at Babi Yar. These massive crimes have generally been overlooked or underestimated by Holocaust historians who focused on the gas chambers. In this painstaking account, Pulitzer Prize-winning author Richard Rhodes profiles the Eastern Campaign's architects as well as its ordinary soldiers and policemen, and helps us understand how such men were conditioned to carry out mass murder. Marshalling a vast array of documents and the testimony of perpetrators and survivors, this book is an essential contribution to our understanding of the Holocaust and World War II. So, this is a subject that really interests me. I know much more than I used to, but when I started this course, I knew very little about the war in Eastern Europe, so I'm really looking forward to going through this book. Next up, I bought The Russo-Ukrainian War, The Return of History by Serhiy Plokhy. I apologize for my pronunciation. I will work to get better at that. Despite repeated warnings from the White House, Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 shocked the world. Why did Putin start the war, and why has it unfolded in unimaginable ways? The Russo-Ukrainian War, featuring an updated afterword for the paperback edition in the Russo-Ukrainian War, Serhiy Plokhy reveals that while this new Cold War was not inevitable, it was predictable. Ukraine, Plokhy argues, has remained central to Russia's idea of itself, even as Ukrainians have followed a radically different path. In a new international environment defined by the proliferation of nuclear weapons, the disintegration of the post-Cold War international order, and a resurgence of populist nationalism, Ukraine is now more than ever the volatile fault line between authoritarianism and democratic Europe. So, present, past. Now, we're going back to the past again in East-West Street by Philippe Sands. This is a book that's recommended for a future class, I believe, but they had it at Barnes & Noble, so I picked it up. A profound and profoundly important book, a moving personal detective story, an uncovering of secret pasts, and a book that explores the creation and development of world-changing legal concepts that came about as a result of the unprecedented atrocities of Hitler's Third Reich. East-West Street looks at the personal and intellectual evolution of the two men who simultaneously originated the ideas of genocide and crimes against humanity. Although unknown to each other, they studied at the same university with the same professors in a city little known today that was a major cultural center of Europe. Let me see when this was published. It was published come on, in 2016. I think by now this city may not be little known today. In a city little known today that was a major cultural center of Europe, the Little Paris of Ukraine, variously called Lemberg, Lwów, Lvov, or Lviv, as we call it today. It is also a spellbinding family memoir in which the author traces the mysterious story of his grandfather as he maneuvered through Europe in the face of Nazi atrocities. Look forward to using this book as a reference, hopefully. Now, it's time to go back to the present, and I picked this up even though I'm not sure if this individual is a historian or he is a professor, and he's Kenneth H. Keller, professor of international affairs at Johns Hopkins University. So, this author also wrote the required monograph for the current course that I'm in. That one is called Ordinary Jews. This one, Eugene Finkel's Intent to Destroy, Russia's 200-Year Quest to Dominate Ukraine, is what I picked up this week. And I picked it up because I feel that since he was a required reading for this course, he would be a good source for potentially my paper. Guess what this is about? Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 shocked the world. And yet, to Ukrainians, this attack was painfully familiar. The latest episode in a centuries-long Russian campaign to divide and oppress Ukraine. In Intent to Destroy, political scientist Eugene Finkel uncovers these deep roots of the Russo-Ukrainian War. Ukraine is a key borderland between Russia and the West, and following the rise of Russian nationalism in the 19th century, dominating Ukraine became the cornerstone of Russian policy. Russia has long used genocidal tactics, killings, deportations, starvation, and cultural destruction to successfully crush Ukrainian efforts to chart an independent path. As Finkel shows, today's violence is simply a more extreme version of the Kremlin's long-standing policy. But, unlike in the past, the people of Ukraine, motivated by the rise of democracy in their nation, have overcome their deep internal divisions. For the first time, they've united in favor of independence from Russia. Whatever the outcome of the present war, Ukraine's staunch resistance has permanently altered its relationship to Russia and the West. So this I really look forward to reading. I'm hoping that he says a lot about Russian propaganda at the onset of the war, and this is in one of these books, Russians' surprise when the Ukrainians didn't welcome them with open arms. Finally, let's go back to the past with, I'm going to butcher this name too, Jochen Helbeck's World Enemy Number 1, Nazi Germany, Soviet Russia, and the Fate of the Jews. In the West, World War II is commonly understood as the Allies' struggle against Nazism. Often elided, if not simply forgotten, is the Soviet Union's crucial role in that fight. With this book, acclaimed historian, I'm not going to butcher his name again, rectifies this omission by relocating the ideological core of the conflict. It was not the Western powers, but communist Russia that Nazi Germany viewed as an existential threat, in fact, as world enemy number one. Jewish revolutionaries, the Nazis believed, had seized power in 1917 and were preparing the Soviet state to destroy Germany and the world. And so, on June 22, 1941, a German army of 3 million attacked the Soviet Union to exterminate Judeo-Bolshevism, Hitler's cardinal obsession. While Europe's Jews were expelled, exiled, and persecuted by the Nazis, Soviet Jews were immediately slated for elimination. The Soviet lands thus became ground zero for systematic extermination, which was later extended to all Jews, igniting the Holocaust. Hellbeck-Plum's newly declassified archives and previously undiscovered sources, testimonies, diaries, and dispatches from soldiers and civilians, both Soviet and German, to offer a unique history that takes account of both sides. He reconstructs the years leading up to the war when Europe against Bolshevism was the Nazis' most fervid rallying cry, and documents their annihilatory ambitions on the battlegrounds in the East. Widely disseminated accounts of German atrocities mobilized millions of Soviet citizens to join a people's war against the hated invaders. Hellbeck tracks the desire for revenge that drove the Red Army on its path of reconquest, an advance that further inflamed the belief in a murderous Bolshevik Jew, stirring the Germans to fight to the bitter end. Finally, Hellbeck reckons with the West's persistent disregard of the Soviet Union's incalculable contribution to winning the war, and its sacrifice of 26 million citizens as anti-communism and the Cold War turned erstwhile allies into mortal enemies. I stumbled across this at Barnes & Noble this weekend, and I had to get it because, again, I think it will add depth and important input in my conference paper that is due in July. It's not too soon to start thinking about that, even though I've got discussion posts to write before then. Anywho, I will probably be back next week. We'll see. And I will have another book haul. And look, if you're not interested in World War II, this might not be for you. But if you are, and if you've stuck with me this far, thank you for sticking with me on my journey, and happy reading, whatever the subject.